Previously on X-Men.
Hey guys, welcome to our new side project. We can just dub it X-Men Games. Maybe it's called Previously on X-Men, where we, Podtendo, look at X-Men stuff just a couple games from now. Maybe we look at a bunch of movies later. I don't know. I'm your co-host, Mick, and I'm joined every episode by my lovely and talented co-host,
Tyson.
Nice. It's good stuff, good stuff. I don't know if we need more of an intro. I could put together a fun song that involves like the X-Men, like that rocking X-Men song.
Oh, that'll probably be used for sure.
That's fun.
There's lots of good music that kind of goes with these games, and I'm excited. I like X-Men. Currently, I'm reading the comics. I don't know if anyone else at home's reading the comics, but you know, there's still the comics if you're interested. They're doing a whole reboot thing. It's always, and it's like it seems like it's every few months, so it's a good time to jump in because it's always kind of a fresh take. You don't really need to
I'm jumping into like the cartoons. I've watched a bunch of the old cartoons the last couple weeks because I've been getting ready to like having X-Men on the brain. And I know we hadn't discussed anything officially for 2023, but I think, you know, our sideshows, there's usually like we need like 11 or 12 of them. I think if you count all the X-Men movies, I think there's about 11 movies.
That's exciting. And probably by 2024, there should be something. Because I know they're working on something. I know it's happening. There's no valid like announcements or anything like that. So I'm just sitting here waiting, knowing.
Yeah, I mean, if the MCU can use like B, C level Avengers and turn them into quality movies and content, I don't understand why they couldn't take A-grade talent like the X-Men and make them kick butt. So
yeah, and there's also like other spin-offs. Like you could do the whole Excalibur stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's like more with the swords and Captain Britain, and that's always cool. And then you can get like Cable, and then have like a whole future sci-fi one. There's so many cool things you can do with it. It's great franchise. Love all of it. But there's some rough stuff, and yeah. I won't say there's not. I'm looking at you, X-Men 3, because that one I'll throw under the bus because that one's bad.
X-Men 3. What's X-Men 3?
Oh yeah, doesn't exist. Oh yeah, it got rewritten.
Oh, the movie. Yeah. I'm sorry. You mean X-Men? Wasn't there like a X-Men United or something?
I think that's X2, X-Men 2 United. And that one's not bad.
X-Men movies. Really?
And then the third one's like
The Last Stand. It's actually just called X-Men The Last Stand. So that's why I was confused.
Ah, yes. Well, my apologies, everyone at home.
Oh, and X-Men Origins Wolverine? Yeah, there's...
it gets rough. But hey, if we have the option to play the Wolverine game that ties into that movie, bad movie, fantastic game. Just saying. Like if you want to play as Wolverine, like that game's fantastic. Like it's pretty brutal, and it doesn't shy away that Wolverine can like regenerate from the skeleton. So there's like one level where you're getting like blown apart by Sentinels, and you literally are like down to your like adamantium skeleton, and then like you like heal all your way back up. It's really cool.
Oh, there I am. All right, well, I was trying to cover a cough by pressing mute on my mic, and my mic went mute. So now I'm talking. That's exciting. Good thing I'm recording. Anyways, on to today's show. Now that we've done our whole... You basically know the future of this podcast. It's just going to become the X-Tendo podcast.
Yes.
Sure, why not?
Why not? For a bit.
Yeah, so because Final Fantasy VIII sucked our souls, we were like, we have to do something fun. We're going to look at X-Men games, because that sounds awesome. So we're going to look at Sega Genesis, although we're not doing a really weird tie-in where like our alternate evil selves have taken over. I guess this is just a regular thing. Didn't we do something where like we're contractually obligated to look at a Sega game once in a while or something?
Yeah, that was like once a year, but I don't know. I haven't heard from our evil doppelgangers in a while, so I feel like they might have not survived, or maybe they're trapped in some parallel universe. You never know. They're different people. They can live their own lives.
All right, so we haven't thought this through very well, because we were excited just to get into, I guess, at least the next 3 sideshows, which are going to be X-Men And like I think I started talking about, I have a cold at some point, so my head's a little delirious. We've got 2 Genesis games, a Game Gear game, good stuff. Today, specifically, we're looking at the very first X-Men game released on the Sega Genesis. I call it X-Men 93 just to differentiate it from every other game that's called X-Men, because there's like 12 of them.
Yeah, and we got to differentiate it because like there's way too many, and they didn't decide to name them different things most of the time.
There's this. There's another X-Men game for the NES or something. The X-Men for the Game Gear is also called just X-Men. Stupid.
They didn't think it through.
Well, I guess not. I guess they're like, you know what? That NES, they'll never make it. Terrible franchise. Legend of Zelda. Who even likes Legend of Zelda?
Yep. No, Sega's worse.
And all these guys in Sonic hats are like, yeah, Sega. Yeah, Sega.
Yes.
One deranged guy in the back's like, Sega!
Actually, I heard a poll, more side tangents, that Sonic is more popular than Pokemon currently. And I'm like, I don't believe this for a second. What poll was this taken? Like a Sonic forum or something?
Yeah, like people going to watch the new Sonic movie were polled going into it if they'd rather watch this or Detective Pikachu. And they're like, I think I'd rather watch Sonic because I've seen Detective Pikachu. And they're like, it's more popular than Pikachu.
Exactly. Proved our point. Everyone here agrees.
I mean, I like polls like that. I take polls like that all the time in my life where I'm like, most people that grocery shop on Friday nights are idiots. Look, I'm here. Hence, idiots shop here.
That's a solid way of looking at it.
It's genius.
But we've digressed. We should probably get back to the game.
I suppose so. So X-Men 93. Vital stats. Developer was Western Technologies, Inc. That's a good sign. Sales. There's no sales data on this game. It was released March 8, 1993. How Long to Beat has this game at 2 hours. On eBay, you can get a copy of this game for $17 for a loose cart. And $2.50 for a factory sealed game. Probably not worth it. But that's $17. Like, I didn't buy it, but I might buy it because it comes in the nice like plastic Sega case, and it's it's there. It's on my shelf. I have the Clone Wars box on my shelf too. Be kind of a nice, cute little part of the collection. And $17. What's $17 really?
Yeah, well, I currently have 2 of them. One in a box and one that's broken and just loose and banging around. So I'm good. I don't need to waste any money on these things. And you could have one if you wanted.
Oh, well, I guess I'll save myself $17 because $17 is really important. It could get me out of a couple jams, so that's exciting.
Excellent reference.
All right, where to play? Just on the Genesis, nowhere else. So that's great. Development details. Buckle up, kids, because you're in for a treat on this one. There wasn't too much on these games. All right, awesome. X-Men is a home console video game produced by Sega for the Sega Genesis in 1993, based on the adventures of the Marvel Comics superhero team, the X-Men. One of 2 players can play any of the 4 pre-chosen X-Men. X-Men was released in 1993 and was followed up by X-Men 2, Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's not a lot of information. But it's kind of the time. This is kind of where video games are popular, but it's also not like they're just a product. It's not like you don't care about game developers. You're not paying attention to that stuff. So it's kind of a very naive part of the world. But I wish there was more information. I'm a documentary on why this game or how this game got made.
Yeah,
it was probably just a bunch of suits being like, "Hey, so can we buy this license, this X-Men license from you guys?" Marvel's like, "Sure, we'll license anything at this point. Like,
yes.
you pay us money, we'll give it to you. We're currently trying to pay down our debts so we don't go bankrupt."
That is probably exactly how it works. Like, maybe there's different forums. There's like more X-Men fan-based forums that have some more information. I usually just go to Wikipedia as my main source. That's it. So, and then some games you find out like weird stories about how they develop things and how they use different chips and how there was shortages and the sound device. And this one, they're like, nah, we just kind of gave this to a team in the corner, told them to work on something. They gave it to us. We just moved on with our lives. All right.
Yep. Cashed our paycheck.
Cool, yeah. So onto the controls. So you can pick one of 4 X-Men, so Gambit, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, or Cyclops, as well as 5 support characters: Rogue, Archangel, Iceman, Storm, Jean Grey. The directional pen moves you. You can jump. You have a regular attack. And then you have mutant attacks, which cause magic to use. You can also summon allies to help you defeat enemies on the screen.
Yeah, the support characters are kind of underwhelming because I was always like, oh man, look how deep, like how much variety this is. It's like you really just have 4 characters that you're going to be playing with for the vast majority of this game.
And they play somewhat similar.
Yeah, Nightcrawler's the kind of the exception, but he's kind of like the weaker, doesn't have a great jump, has a dash kick, which if you're trying to break this game is helpful, and his teleport can get you out of a few jams. Yeah, Cyclops and Gambit play pretty much identical, except for Cyclops just has a better mutant power. Wolverine's kind of the not great one, but he's Wolverine, so I always ended up picking him.
So like the one thing about X-Men is it's deep in lore, right? Like it deals with real life situations of kind of coming of age, of dealing with like puberty. There's like tinges of like homosexuality and being outcasts and racism. But if their mutant powers are just reliant on this power bar that depletes the more they use it, why doesn't like Cyclops just shoot all his laser beams and then he doesn't have any more laser beams in his head? And then just not pick up the X-Men tokens and just be a normal guy. Sounds like a plot hole.
Sounds like video game logic to me.
Oh, yes, video game logic. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, yes. Well, that's a fair point, though. Except for maybe Wolverine, who just heals. Which would be like, it's not a bad thing to have.
No, he's just like always. He's just a very klutzy guy. And he's always putting like nails in his hand at work. He's like, "Oh God!" And then he's just like never goes to the hospital. And you're like, that guy never fills out an incident report. It's weird, but he's never hurt. Like, huh?
Like WCB has this huge long list of complaints against him.
Do you think you could work in like nuclear reactors and not have any effects from like the radiation?
Maybe over time, like his body would have probably eventually heal from it because it heals from it faster than everybody. But I'm assuming it's just like it's like anything. It's just nuclear radiation lasts for a very, very, very long time. So I have no idea.
So he would probably just absorb it all, it'd heal, and he'd become radioactive.
He might become radioactive man in the Marvel universe.
So he might have to join the band Imagine Dragons.
Maybe he could be the lead singer because I'd rather listen to Wolverine sing than the lead singer of Imagine Dragons.
Hey, if we didn't
imagine a few of their songs, like throwing a bub every now and then, and I'm just like, I think I like this band a lot better.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if we didn't have Radioactive though, we wouldn't have Weird Al Yankovic's classic Very Inactive. So
yes, well, we wouldn't want to deprive the world of more of his classics.
This is actually one of the most quintessential Podtendo podcasts. We have tangents, we tell little weird inside jokes, we have Weird Al Yankovic references. It's great. Everything we want.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Well, maybe because this game's a little thin, but it's.
I was gonna say, I was like, I think these sideshows are supposed to be like under an hour, 40 minutes ish, and I'm like looking at the notes, and I was like, well, we've already talked about 3 of our 5 sections, so let's keep on rolling. Maybe we pad this out. We can get to 30 minutes if we're lucky. All right. So first memories of this game. So I remember I was once in a room/birthday party where this game was being played. I don't know if I actually played it though. So this is probably my first experience with this game.
I've picked this game up periodically. I think I remember buying my first copy of this game, which is probably where I got the broken one. But this like I loved Clone Wars. We had Clone Wars, and knowing that this game existed always just made me want to go out and get it because being a huge X-Men fan, I couldn't say no. So I've played this first time beating it all the way through because usually I get frustrated and don't look up all the cheap mechanics that you can use to get past this game.
Nice.
Also, the bosses are frustrating.
They're not super fun. Not at all.
No, not at all.
All right. Okay, so let's look at the story of this fun game. So this game takes place in the Danger Room, a training area where the X-Men inside the X-Mansion. A virus transmitted via satellite has infected the Danger Room, disabling controls and safety limits. The X-Men must endure the unpredictable behavior of the Danger Room until the virus can be located and eliminated. Cool.
Yeah, it kind of starts where it's like, looks almost like they're just training and they don't really know what's up, but it keeps throwing them into levels or like simulations, and it keeps getting progressively more difficult. But they don't realize that it's malfunctioning right away, which is kind of funny. I do kind of actually like how this story is handled compared to a wall of text in other games. But yeah, kind of a neat little setup. Start in the danger room, and that's kind of the hub for the game. And yeah, I think it's pretty neat. Nice. There's a glitch that you can use to like with Gambit to skip the first 2 levels.
Oh, okay.
And it's so if you get good at this game, you don't want to like make it a pain to play through the first couple levels because they're not that interesting. You apparently just like hold down or wait till like the one light flashes green, jump into the elevator or the level with Gambit holding his like card.
Okay.
Or charge, and then when he like it reappears, he'll still be charging, but he doesn't like it's not glowing. Then you just release, and it'll just teleport you back to the danger room.
Huh, cool.
Yeah. So quick little glitch.
Sweet, yo. But those first 2 stages are important, so we talked about them. Stage 1, we're in the Savage Land. So you have to battle through the Savage Land. There are flying creatures, 4-armed guys, a switch, and a boss. We also might have to fight at some point someone named Zaladane here. Maybe she's the end boss. I don't know. But also we fight Juggernaut. If you unleash your mutant attacks and spam your summons, he should be defeated.
Yeah, he's only vulnerable when you or like right after he's done charging and he stands straight up. You have to hit him in the helmet. So kind of a trick, but the biggest enemy in this level is the bees, because they'll knock you from platforms and then you fall into spikes and it's a bad time.
No, we love knockback damage. And just like every other Sega game in the world, I think I mentioned this before, they were really good at expanding levels. Their platformers are super long. Like every Sonic game is just way longer than it should be. These courses feel just a little bit longer, and they do lose substance at some point, and they just kind of throw the same like obstacles at you. So from a game design point of view, like Mario is nice because it always has like the 5 stages, right? Like they introduce an enemy or they introduce an obstacle, and then they like change it up, and then they change it up, and then you have to master it, and that's that one more attempt, and then it's over, right? And this one it's just kind of like, here's a bunch of stuff, go.
Yeah, and I feel like they have a really good idea of how to just keep progressively making the levels, and I feel like they need to add lots and lots of like just padding and length when it's kind of just repetitious and like kind of annoying after a while. But
but like
there's some levels that are fun, but yeah, it can get really excessive.
It's
just like
and like sometimes it's fine. Like this one is this game's actually done not terribly, but there's just lots of examples of Sega games that are just like, you're like, when you're playing them, you're like, this is just like a little bit too long. Like I kind of don't want to be playing this game anymore. It's I don't know. It's a shame.
Yeah, especially when you're just like, it's kind of unforgiving. Yeah. And it's like, it feels like you can die at any minute. You're not really safe. It just adds to the anxiety of the game. But yeah. Oh, and I think the Zaladane one is when the like after you beat Juggernaut, you keep running, and then she's that lady that like charges up a beam above her head and throws it at you, and just use like Archangel and Storm.
Well, so I copied all the bosses for this game and left them on the notes, and then I went through and wrote all my notes, and I ended up with a couple extras. So once in a while we cut to a place and I'm like, I think he's a bad guy, I think not, I couldn't really remember. So, and I didn't look into it. So, but stage 2, we're onto the Shi'ar Empire. So now we're deep in outer space. They're robot man that's standing in our way. We have to fight on a rocket ship and battle with Deathbird. She's the boss. You have to contend with the boss and a guy in a gunner ship. And afterwards, Lalandra shows up and says that this is just a computer simulation.
Yeah, pretty fun little level. I think this is where the music really kicks in. And Deathbird's, she makes an appearance on the animated series. She's like pink and stuff. Looks like a lady in bird outfit. It's pretty cool. There's that one random scene where you have to dodge. You have to dodge boulder like asteroids that are coming at you when you're taking this random shuttle, which is strange, but it's kind of a neat little variety. Like again, adding length. Like, that doesn't need to be as long as it is, but
Yeah, I like that. I like when you're on even that little ship or whatever. Like, you go between the stations, and it's like kind of going. You kind of have to keep walking forward, and guys come out, and you have to attack them and like jump the asteroids. I like that part. I was like, what an interesting mechanic. I like this part of the game.
yeah, it was pretty. It's much different than the same. Just like, be careful because people will just like knock you back, and you'll take a chunk of damage. But it's yeah, it's an okay little level. I like the atmosphere, and Shi'ar is very cool to visit.
Yeah, nice. So on to stage. I mean, there's only six stages. We're already on stage 3. This is my length of video game. I like that. Six chapters done. I don't need these 27 chapters. I'm like, psh, get out of here. I don't got time for that. So stage 3, Excalibur Castle. You are transported to jolly old England. For this next adventure, you fight Sabretooth, you get some night vision glasses, and you battle your evil clones before fighting Apocalypse. He grows, so punch him until he dies. That was, I'm sorry for every English person ever.
That's fair.
I have a cold. I can't do the accent. I probably can't do it that well without being super offensive anyways, so maybe you're welcome.
It happens. It's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to do accents. I especially English accents and Australian. You just can't sound good doing them unless you're really talented. As for the Excalibur level, pretty cool because I like the Excalibur reference, and Sabretooth's pretty tricky because he's only vulnerable when he's diving in a diving motion, but you can essentially just trick him by simply jumping and getting him like stuck in his attack animation. It's it's not too hard. It's like once you get the timing, he's super easy. The boss rush is pretty like over, like this is unnecessary, but I appreciate it because it's leading up to Apocalypse, and like, I mean, who doesn't like fighting Apocalypse? He seems to always be kind of early, like not the main villain of a game, but early on, and I appreciate that because it's kind of like he's a cool boss, but I don't want him to be like the main villain of every game ever. But he needs to make an appearance.
Yeah, no, that's I say I had the same reaction. All of a sudden, I was like stage 3, and there's Apocalypse, and I'm like, I feel like he should probably be like the end guy, maybe, or like towards the end. But no, they're just like, don't worry about it, it's fine.
Yeah, but I think it kind of like rips that Band-Aid off for all the X-Men fans that are like, oh, okay, he's clearly not him. Like, this virus isn't Apocalypse doing. It's just a virus. Okay, let me deal with this situation.
But he kind of always has that, right? Because I think the X-Men cartoon show, he was supposed to be like the Beyond Good and Evil timeline in like season 4 in the animated series was supposed to be end of the series, but because they had a really weird production schedule, it got pushed to like mid-season, and then there was a whole other season afterwards, right? And it just doesn't like kind of add up. As well as the X-Men movies, X-Men whatever Age of Apocalypse, whatever that movie was called, should have been the last movie, but then they randomly made Dark Phoenix just because they're like, no, you know what, Apocalypse definitely should be the end guy, should be the greatest, but they're like, we'll just do one more thing afterwards and it's fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not going to kill this franchise.
I think he even shows up in the next game and he's not the end guy, because isn't in Clone Wars he's like only in like,
and yeah, and he's also like, he's just after Magneto in Clone Wars, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other things after that. You also have to fight him in, I think he's the end guy in the Sega game, or maybe I'm mistaken, or in the Super Nintendo. Sorry, my mistake. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Apocalypse? He's like kind of usually he's the big bad if you paid attention to the like if the animated series is kind of like your frame of reference. So he needs to be in here. I like him after the boss rush because it kind of like sets up this false climax of like, oh yeah, this is it. You're gonna make a big run. Then the game kind of keeps going and.
Well, it does kind of like, it is kind of the midway point of this game. So stage 4, we get to apocalyptic Sentinel future. So Professor X shows up and tells us there's something wrong with the danger room. You think? You then find yourself in the near future after Sentinels take over. You have to battle through a maze of cannons, Gimp Men, and Sentinels. There's also a weird line of dialogue about, you like reminisce and you're like, look at this racist landscape. And maybe you fight someone called Ahab here. But I thought it was a Sentinel, so I wrote Sentinel, but maybe his name is Ahab. I don't know. Anyways, boss here is Sentinel. He teleports around the room, and then you take him down with punches.
Yeah. He has a spear and like a pops in and out of teleport or like portals.
I thought that was just a Sentinel. I didn't realize it was a guy named Ahab.
Yeah, it's not clear. It's not clear at all. Sometimes the villains, and I don't even know who this guy is. I'm like, I have a pretty deep knowledge of the X-Men universe, and I don't know who this guy is, so I'm confused. But yeah, he's kind of irritating to fight because he just like disappears. But what do you do? It's like all the boss. You kind of like you just wait for them to give that fraction of a second of an opening, and then just use your support characters to own them.
Yes. Apparently, he worked as a research assistant with Moira McTavish on Muir Island at some point.
Oh, boo.
In Excalibur, something. He's like shown with like sentinels in this picture, and he's like a robot man. Huh. Cool.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a comic that this is referencing. But
he like hung out with the Hellfire Club at some point. I mean, I could read through the whole little Wikipedia page, but no, enough of that. That's all we need to know.
No, this guy does not deserve it. He's like a D-lister in the X-Men universe.
All right, on to stage 5 though, the end of time. So Professor X says the danger room is acting up, so we have to restart it to fix it. We move along the stage that has Mojo's head showing up on a bunch of TVs before we fight him. We then move a few more screens, and then there's an endpoint. The boss here is Mojo.
Yeah, big fat guy waddles around. It's nice that you actually got to fight him. The strategy with is just use Gambit.
I was gonna say I don't know if he's very interesting because my notes just saying Mojo ...
He scuttles around, hit him in his big butt.
Yeah,
he's pretty useless. I like the TVs in the background. You could have done a little bit more with the Mojo world, like have me flash in between different areas and stuff.
Yeah.
But
you're on like a speedboat at some point, and then you're in like a haunted house. Anything that's just TV related, because Mojo's kind of a guy that lives in like a reality where TV's a thing.
Yep. And
also, this level's really short because like I was just playing through it. All of a sudden, I'm just fighting Mojo, and then like 2 more screens, I jump into this little computer thing, and it's like, haha, you fixed the danger room, and I'm like, how is that level 5?
Yeah, I'm like I feel like there has to be something to do with limitations of like the way they program this, because it's a neat little like mechanic. So after you beat Mojo, you go and destroy this one area, and then Professor Xavier's head shows up on like the monitor, and that's the cue to hit reset. I'm sure so many kids never figured this out. This is a dumb mechanic, and it's like there's so much that probably kids that just like I never thought of it, just press on and off and never hit the reset button, because that's what we would do as kids. We'd always just turn it on and off. Why would you ever hit reset? It's like no, I gotta hit reset. It's like I'm sure there's many people that like played this as kids that just never figured that out.
That is confusing.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like you miss one line of dialogue, you're just you for heaven forbid, and it's like literally it's like Professor Xavier says that something like you have to reset the computer, and you're like, this is like the whole Meryl on the codec on the back of the CD box.
Spoilers.
No one knew my references.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, that is neat mechanic. But we reset. Guess what happens? On to stage 6, Asteroid M. You managed to reset the computer and learn that the virus's origin is Asteroid M. Oh, Magneto. You see a lot of Psylocke ass before coming or going to confront Magneto. There's some tricky platforming here. A lot of soldiers to contend with, and at the far right side, you fight the master of magnetism himself, Magneto. You avoid his attack when he's magnetized, and then you unleash attacks on him, and he dies.
Yeah, as for like just random like Psylocke's butt and Psylocke's face, she's not even in the game.
Well,
why is she here?
Like, it's like a cool cutscene, right? And they just like it's like all panels of a comic, and just one of them is just like a lot of Psylocke butt, and then
she's like a quarter of the panel, and it's like and then 4 other
come
X-Men
together, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. It's a comic, but I'm like, but Psylocke's not even in this game, so
right? It's like I could see Rogue. Where's Rogue? Why isn't Rogue standing there? It's like I don't know. I think the artist just was like, I'm gonna draw Psylocke in here. This is fine. So.
Obviously, Rogue's butt doesn't show as much as Psylocke's butt. Duh.
Well, there's our answer.
Right.
As for Asteroid M,
I was just gonna move on. I was like, I'm satisfied with the way we tackled that level. So
it's like, you know what? I think we solved the solution.
It's a good end level, right? So the difficulty is not too difficult. They throw a lot out at you, and it feels like it's a good ending, right? And like Magneto feels like a good end boss, whereas other parts of this game has been uneven. This feels like a good conclusion. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think even the Magneto's bosses doesn't seem to be like super not fair. Like there's some enemies that have been like super unfair with like the frames you have to like do damage. I felt like Magneto is pretty like generous, but it's also nice that like he's the other main villain against the X-Men, and it was him who uploaded the dang virus to the Danger Room and tried to kill us. Which I mean, is a very elaborate plan for a guy that can just has us in a big metal room and can control like metal, but. Yeah. I don't know. I think it was a pretty good ending. The whole Professor X Magneto is kind of the trope. So.
Well, it's such an interesting relationship too, because he's like one of the greatest frenemies, right? Like amazing villain, but he also plays the face a lot, right? Magneto's a very confusing villain. Like he is the ultimate X-Men villain, of course, yes, but more often than not, he eventually just becomes their friend.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time is just how a lot like when Professor X or the X-Men and Magneto kind of join up, it's a lot of the greater good outweighs their petty differences, but their petty differences are kind of major because like X-Men are like, no, we need to be non-violent and protect all lives, and Magneto's like, no, I'm going to crush them, and they're going to bow to me. And you're like, he's kind of got like that dictator thing going, so I get why they're like against it. But at the same time, Magneto's a pretty in-depth character where he does truly care for his people, but maybe not humankind so much.
Oh, I think that's the issue. He does like, he's a friend, but he just has such a despise of humanity that it kind of like he can't quite be an X-Man, right? Like he has that thing because in the X-Men cartoon or the animated series, he starts off as a villain. And then he just definitely works his way into like fret when he shows up. That it's like, hey, Magneto, what's going on, buddy? Right? I know in the Wolverine in the X-Men series, which came out like 10 years ago or something like that, he was a bit more of a good guy throughout. Maybe an X-Men evolution. I don't remember exactly how that storyline plays out, but I think he's kind of like he's the leader of the bad kids or something. At some point, he's pulling the strings, and then at some point, like it ends with a fight against Apocalypse.
Yeah, I heard there's supposed to be like, then it goes into like Days of Future Past. Or is that Wolverine and the X-Men?
I think that's Wolverine and the X-Men.
Wolverine and the X-Men. I like him. I think he's a really in-depth, like has a lot of character depth. Currently in the comics, they're all like buddy-buddy because they're living on a place called Krakoa, which is like an island. It's like a living island that's like a paradise, so all the mutants can go there and live in harmony. And there's a whole like resurrection protocol, so like dying's no longer a thing, and people that have died can kind of get brought back. Magneto's on like one of the council that oversees everything. Same with a few X-Men and people like Mr. Sinister and Emma Frost. It's really cool. So if that piques your interest, go to your local comic book store and check it out. So.
Cool. All right. Sweet. So the ending of this game, now that you know everything you need to know ever about Magneto, Magneto falls. Professor X tells him that his dream is stupid. Or Magneto falls and he tells Professor X that his dream is stupid. Professor X replies that he isn't stupid and he's going to wreck Magneto's computer. Sure, why not?
The end.
The end. And they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah, never fought again.
Great. That's amazing. Super duper. Actually, I guess it's fitting that we talked about Magneto because maybe Magneto's the boss of the next game, but then he's our friend. So go from there. Cool. Current thoughts. Not the best game I ever played. I enjoyed how much actual comic book material was used in this game. That was really neat. They just didn't create their own villains for no reason, right? Like they used actual reference material. The music was really obnoxious at some parts. It was really bad. There were some like tracks that were good, but then Sega has this really obnoxious sound to it, and it just, I don't know. Like there was parts where I like turned the sound off, right? The comic panel cutscenes were cute the one time they were used. I didn't love how you have limited mutant powers. That really bugs me. Maybe it'll be resolved in the future at some point. But it was an okay experience. Nothing special. Tyson?
Yeah, as I think it's an average game. If you like X-Men, you'll get a kick out of it. If you like the comics and know a little bit at this time, you'll get a lot of the references. If you follow the cartoon, you'll get a lot of the references. The music's pretty uneven and very repetitive. There's a couple songs that I'm like, yeah. Clone Wars 2 definitely steps it up a notch in terms of almost everything.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler, we're going to struggle through another game that's similar to this, and then we get to the good games. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that this game tries to almost do too much, whereas maybe the next game tries to keep it simple, which is almost a benefit. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that this game tries lots. It's very interesting. You can use like Iceman to skip certain parts. You can there's lots of, if you know where you're going, you can skip things. If you are good with Nightcrawler, you know that you can use like his jump kick forward to get a really far, like you can basically do it repetitive, so you can almost like fly through the air or glide, and just like if you like work your way off of tall jump and want to clear a huge section, you can just do that, and then you can teleport. It's pretty ridiculous. There's a lot of ways to abuse this game and speed run this game with the gambit trick. It's fun. I think that, but you kind of have to make your own fun, and it's pretty average. Controls are tight. Presentation's interesting. I like that there actually is a story and not just a wall of text. So I like it, but I mean, I'm also biased because I'm a big X-Men fan. So, and I own 2 copies of this game, everybody. So
yeah, apparently.
Not a lot of people, not a lot of games I own 2 copies.
So what you're saying is we should like build to our legacy, and we should definitely get a third one. All right, sold. I'll go on eBay right now. It's $17. I don't even need $17, really.
Yeah, that's nothing these days.
Nothing at all. So then a final, what would we change? And then we're done with this game. Like I said, it's not going to take very long. We had a lot of padding. We barely got over 30 minutes. Great. So like most Sega platformers, make the platforms just more clear. The number of times I kind of was like, I'll jump there, and you fall to your death because I couldn't figure out what was a platform, what wasn't. They just, I don't know, they do this weird like 3D isometric. Just show me what a platform is. Like, don't be cute. Just make it definitive. That's all I ask.
Yeah, and there's a couple awful jump sections where like the platforms reappear, disappear, and there's like electrical parts. That's awful. It's frustrating. This game should be more about like the action and less about platforming, where game is heavily platforming with a little bit of combat that's kind of unforgiving. So take your time, don't really rush it, and have fun with it. But yeah, what I would change would make this less platforming and more action. Like, don't limit my X-Men ability, and let me just have fun with it and blast my way through this. And like, because that would be fun. Like, I think that would be, you do that and you smooth out some of the platformings with less awful jumps and more forgiving. It's like, you got yourself a way funner adventure.
What you're inferring is we messed up by playing this game, and what we should have played was just one of the arcade games.
Oh, I'm going to make us play one of the arcade game at some point, because that game is fun. Right. But we have a few arcade games that we need to get to, so maybe we'll save that for a group.
Nice. Okay, so then on final section, I was thinking, what else could we do? A Wayback Machine? I don't know. I wanted to put a little bit of a spin on these previously on X-Men shows, these side quests that we're doing, and I thought, hey, there we go. What's going on in the world of X-Men when this game came out? That's an idea we can run with. So we have this section called Previously on X-Men. But maybe the whole series is called Previously on X-Men. I haven't really figured that out yet. So on the comic runs, we see X-Men, the second series, number 18, A Skinning of Souls, Part 2, The Corpse Mature. The Crops Mature. Stupid reading. Omega Red battles with the X-Men in Russia. Okay, that sounds fun.
Yep. And for those who don't know, so the second series is like, I think we're on the 4th series now, maybe the 5th. Every time they reboot it and give it a new number 1, it's a new series. So this is the second one after like the original people in the yellow and blue tights. Yeah. This is the second one. This is kind of the one that everybody knows a lot from, like this is the Jim Lee and Chris Claremont run. So I don't know if they're still writing these ones, but this is they started it, and that's where this whole thing's derived from. At least I think so, off the top of my head. But
Cool.
yeah, Mega Red, always fun.
Yeah, he's like, I guess, sure, all right. He's like the Russian, I don't know, Russian superhero. He's got like cybernetics or something.
Yeah, well, he also has like these like tentacles that come out. I don't know what the heck tentacles would you call them. But they're like electrified and they can zap your energy, and he's basically indestructible, and like you can't do damage to him, so they end up dealing with him in pretty like obvious ways. You're like, just throw him in like the ocean.
I think in the cartoon at some point, I remember they were in a nuclear sub and he just sinks to the bottom and he's just stuck down there.
Yeah,
so.
And that's the easiest way of dealing with him, because how the heck else is he going to get out of there?
Stupid Omega Red. Best Russian villain ever. On to, where are we at? So that's X-Men. Let's look at the cartoon series. So we get to the X-Men animated series. We look at a pretty good episode here. Season 1, Episode 11, Days of Future Past, Part 1. Bishop comes back from the future to stop the X-Men assassinating an important political figure. And I said, that's a pretty good summary, but we need to get a little bit more in depth. I'm going to go scene by scene and tell you what happened. We've never done this before. We never went this in depth. Are you ready for this? So Wolverine and 2 mutants fight and are captured in the future. Bishop gets backstabbed by the Sentinels and joins Wolverine's plans to travel into the past to stop the assassination of the 90s.
Yeah.
I guess each one of those is a talking point. So neat to see kind of a weird post-apocalyptic world, right? Get kind of a taste. See Old Man Logan kicking around.
Yep. Walk past the grave of all the former X-Men, where we see all our beloved characters' graves. It's funny how they all managed to get the same.
Yeah.
Like, and it's all their code names,
like,
too.
Jubilee died at 12 years ago, so that's kind of sad.
Yeah. I think Scott actually, but if you do the math, like Scott was like 54 when he died.
I think he's in his 70s, because this shows like the 90s. So 22 is 30 years in the future, and he's already in his 30s. So he like lives to be like past 65.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
It's actually it's like that's pretty like solid like life before things go crazy. Yeah. So it's like it's crazy to think about that time gap. Especially when we're watching these these like looking back, but classic Bishop, time travel story. Sentinels are taken over and gotta reset it and save the future. So
there you go. So our next scene, Bishop in the past. Now Bishop travels in time to the past. He shits on New York City, steals a bus, and drives it full force into the X Mansion. I like this part because he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, what a dump hole! I didn't travel back in time at all." And I'm like, "Yeah, suck it, New York City." He then steals a bus, and he's like, "I have to get to the X-Men." So at this point, he forgot why he was back in time. He's like, "I need to go to see the X-Men because they kill someone. I need to stop them." And he kind of like has a foggy memory, but he just knows he has to. I thought he was going to go talk to them. Like, I thought he was friends. And then the next scene is him driving this bus full force through the main gates and just drives it into their front lobby. And I was like, Bishop, what are you doing? I was like, is that how they drive in the future? Is that why the city's so crappy? Because that's like, they don't have brakes on their cars? And he gets out and he like gets into a little skirmish. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But like, I had a good chuckle where I was like, Bishop, why are you driving your car like an asshole?
Oh yeah, this is the classic little like section of scenes. Like now, like first thing he does, he's like, "Oh, it did failed. I didn't go in the back to the past at all. It's all still ruined." And like it's just New York.
It's just a regular street. And you're like, "Suck it, New York, you stupid back out."
It's like that's such a ruthless joke. It's so amazing. And then like Bishop, like running around, gun out in his big old goofy outfit, just like steals a bus and then just like floors it to the X Mansion. You're like, this guy. I'm surprised he didn't run out of gas because he was not using his brakes or anything.
Not in the slightest. So I was like, all right. I was like, so that's it. That's the highlight of the show. So the X-Men subdue him, learn of the plan, and agree to help prevent the assassination. But Bishop can't remember who exactly is the culprit. That's too bad.
And then a certain somebody shows up. Oh no, wait, not quite.
No,
yet,
not quite yet. We still need to get the part where, yeah, nothing really notable there. But Cyclops at one point, he's like, it could be any one of us. And Cyclops is like, except for Jean. She definitely couldn't be the assassin. And I was like, why not? Like, that, fuck everyone else, I guess. Like, I was like, what's going on? She's like, it could be any of us. No, not you.
Not you, Jean.
Cyclops.
Jean, yeah, like maybe this is foreshadowing the Phoenix Saga and the Dark Phoenix Saga, where she just basically can kill a bunch of people and maybe does.
Well, I think, yeah, at this point, technically, they were based on the continuity from, like, the previous series. So, yes, the Dark Phoenix Saga would have happened in her past or something like that, is what they're alluding to. It just, I don't know, it's dumb. Like, Cyclops looks like a real simp in that moment, and I'm like, that's like, no, it definitely couldn't be my girlfriend. Well, it could be any one of us. No, not my girl. Oh, all right, cool, buddy.
like relax.
All right.
Bro,
all right.
relax.
So then finally Gambit shows up and Bishop's like, oh no, that's definitely the guy, and shoots him. The end.
Yeah. Very dramatic. Just like points at him and like point blank range just shoots Gambit. This episode is really good. I know we're kind of like laughing at it and having fun with it, but it's kind of like silly. And I mean, I love the X-Men, and that's why I think I love the X-Men so much, is because they are a little silly.
Yeah.
Like it's a super serious thing about like the future and everybody being dead, and like basically all mutants are slaves and round up and tossed into camps. It's like but it's such a dark topic that I love the ability that the writers can mix brevity and jokes in it so that it's approachable to everybody, because it's like you shouldn't shy away from these dark topics and these dark stories. They should be shared and learned from, but it's also nice to break things up so it's not taking itself too seriously.
No, not at all.
And just the whole like Bishop, I'm just chuckling about Bishop stealing that bus.
Oh, it is great. Like, if you've never watched it before, just watch that part where he just drives like nonstop into the front lobby. And again, in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's going to go see his friends, the X-Men, right? Like, he obviously knows who these people are. Nope, sure doesn't.
No, just bursts in the front door like Kool-Aid Man.
Great. It was great. Also, during our initial watch through of the show, so we used to have our dad's friend tape these for us in the afternoons, which, kudos for that guy. Like, what a darling angel, eh? Like, these poor little kids that don't have any cartoons, and he's like, oh, I'll make some tapes, and Dad would go and like visit them, and like there was no back and forth or hey, what's up? Just here's these videotapes for you to watch cartoons on, right? Good for that guy. I
think we got some SWAT cats in there and all sorts of
I did not know that this was like the first time travel episode. In my mind, the first one is the one with the virus. So the next season, right, when they do the time travel episode. So this kind of starts a whole, like, Bishop as a concept, as a character is mind-blowing. So he starts off in this post-apocalyptic future. He goes back in time, and then he jumps forward to the future. And then, like, later on, he's going back in time to stop something else. And he just kind of, like, jumps in and out of these series. But in his life, like, if you watch just the time travel episodes, you know everything that Bishop does. So in the series, he travels back in time to stop an assassination, and then a virus, and then assassination. And then he ends up in outer space fighting Apocalypse. Like, what an interesting life Bishop's lived.
Yeah, and it's because it keeps failing. It's interesting because they keep being like, if you fix this one thing, the whole timeline is going to get fixed. But that's not how it works. You can't just go back and do one thing, and the entire world's just going to be like, okay, now it's fixed and sunshine and rainbows. It's like, no, the world's a complicated place where you could try all you might, maybe. And I think that I like that kind of whole. If you watch all of Bishop's stories, it makes sense, and like he keeps going to the Back to the Future to see how it turns out, and he's like, it's still kind of wrecked. And then like talks to Forge, and Forge's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm sending you back in time.
Yeah,
and
well, it's just like it's fascinating. It'd be almost as if they had a standalone cartoon, like movie series of Bishop, like with the X-Men coming to MCU, they just create Bishop as a timeline, and all his movies fit together, but he just like jumps in and out of like the regular MCU continuity and alters things for himself. It's very fascinating, like very, very high concept for a children's show. And I think that's why one of these things why I think the X-Men animated series stands out so much in my mind is because they treat children with respect.
Oh, 100%. And like, I mean, as a kid, you're not like dissecting it like to level that we are, but you pick up on it. When you re-see, oh, hey, there's Bishop time traveling again. And it very, like, the writing and the way they set everything up, like, oh, hey, there's Wolverine in the background. Like, I remember him from the last time you saw Bishop. So like it leaves those like little breadcrumbs so your brain can make those connections, and it just like it works really well. I think that the writing's solid. They don't really talk down to anybody. They address very interesting and like deep concepts, and I the whole idea that Bishop never really succeeds and that he keeps traveling back in time to fix something is just like he's never really like going to like live. He's not really like living his life. He's just like perpetually going through time to fix like he's almost in a loop of time travel where he can't fix anything.
Yeah,
but he keeps trying, because every time he goes back to the future it's just wrecked, and you're like, man, poor Bishop.
It is Bishop time travel failing. There was something there, I lost it. Anyway, so that is the episode. So let's look at our review. Then I got some trivia, and then we're done. So our favorite part. So just like our old side quest cinemas, favorite parts. I like how ambitious X-Men is with their time travel storylines. The show series is strong without them, but they add that little bit of intrigue to make them one of the top children cartoons ever. Wow. And I also like the scene where he drives the bus into the X-Mansion. It's funny.
Yes, I agree. Right. Both those
All right.
points.
Any other favorite parts? No, that works. All right. So most memorable parts. Let's see. So the introduction of Bishop and his time traveling adventures. All right. When Xavier reads his mind and we see the future events, which is really neat because they kind of like they sprinkle breadcrumbs, and you really have to pay attention to kind of see how the racism in the Mutant Registration Act kind of goes awry, and the Sentinels, right? The X-Men graveyard or Old Man Logan.
Yeah. It's I like how it's weird that probably my favorite part is just the story. It's very neat that like the traveling back in time, and there's like you said where like you see the X-Men dead, the characters that we love, and like I just like that. I like the whole concept. I think it's awesome and really well done. But it's also like, man, you're like, this is a cartoon about mutants and superheroes, but it's very political.
Oh, very.
Where it's very, and makes a lot of interesting points where it's like singling out these people and making them register and all these things. It's like these are horrible things that should be avoided, because it's like we should just be all more inclusive and less restrictive. And I like that that's where they're making their stance, and it's like, here are the repercussions in the future if you keep going down these roads. It's like I like the juxtaposition it kind of creates, and it doesn't like shy away from it. It's like, no, this is what the story's about, and we're gonna present it to you.
Well, and it's very mature content too, right? And I wonder if it helps a whole generation just be a bit more open-minded, that we grew up with these kind of things in our lives, right? Being like, racism is bad, right? Like, just because someone's different, you shouldn't treat them differently, right? That's kind of the point of X-Men, right? So
100%. And it's like,
and all the characters are like very flamboyant with their costumes, right? I don't know how it plays in the queer community, but I'd be very interested to hear how like youth that grew up with this were like, I love the show because I saw people that were like kind of like me, you know, like there's literally characters that are flaming, like they're on fire on the screen, right? And they're being persecuted for the way they act because, you know, they developed a certain way in puberty, right? So it'd be interesting to see like how that take, but it's just one of those things. It's done very well and it's very mature. Versus I feel like nowadays, if like content you wouldn't get that kind of deep content, right?
Totally. Well, I think that like you look at this and then you compare it to even something like The Simpsons, which we love as a show. That show got a lot of criticism just because people said, hell, damn, and like down with homework and dumb things like that, and eat my shorts. It's like that. It's interesting. It's just crazy how like times have changed. Like even from that brief moment of like when Bart Simpson was like the most outrageous things, and Simpsons t-shirts are banned and not allowed to have them in schools. But then the Simpsons or the X-Men's like is making these really deep, poignant points, and people are starting to kind of listen. So it's crazy to me how like one show was ridiculed for being like relatively tame, and then this show is like going beyond and not talking down to people. And I think it does it in such a respectful manner that it's like, No, like I don't remember parents getting outraged at this. So
Yeah, and I mean, because it's smart and it's subtle, parents probably too dumb to notice, right? So, yeah,
no,
they kind of wore it on their
It's just
sleeve,
about
right? And
dumb superheroes,
100%.
right?
That's the best way to make allegories and like make points in media is you veil your message behind something fun, and then parents to see it superficially, and they're like, I'll never watch this with my kids. I'll take no interest in their lives, but I'll be outraged if something alters their opinion.
If I see one butt of a cartoon character,
So,
I'm gonna
Help
rage.
me God if I have to look at Bart Simpson's ass one more time. All right, how about what's our least favorite part of this movie? I said how similar the plot is to Terminator.
Yeah, it is a little similar to Terminator, but I think all time travel stories and
Yeah.
I mean, I think time travel is a little like cliched, but how else do you tell this story?
True.
So.
All right. Okay, how about criticism? So final negative thing to say, we'll add with one more positive, and then we're out of here. So I just don't like, I wish we spent more time in the future. I realize you have to like progress, but even like that little like Professor X mind reading thing that he does where he like sees, like you see glimpses. I'm like, oh, that's neat. I want more of the lore. So basically I just want more future lore. But I guess it doesn't matter because if the timeline gets altered, none of it happened.
Right. But it's what if you have this cool interesting area, and I agree. I think that's my criticism because this is based on the Days of Future Past comic. There's a novelization as well, so if you're interested in that, you can probably get it at your local library.
And even a movie about it.
Yeah, it's like this is a pretty well told story. What's interesting is in the comics is they like the people that send Kitty back in time because it's Kitty, not Wolverine, or not Bishop that goes back in time. Or Wolverine that goes back in time or whatever on Days of Future Past. It's very like her and her like younger self switch places. So it's like, and all the other people like old Magneto and old Storm and old Colossus are all just like hanging around with like old Kitty, but and with her mind of a young kid, and they have to like still survive while like Kitty back in time is going and making changes. So it's very interesting. Like I like how that's kind of done, and then you kind of get to explore both worlds in tandem, but that's really ambitious. They would have to do a 3-parter for that. So
well, and based on look at most like 90s cartoon show, any cartoon show actually, any television show, just like the fact that studios don't trust that people will like them and like rush production and change things. The fact you ever get any show ever is amazing.
Oh, 100%. Right? Like it's, especially like animation. Yeah. Like it's such a complicated system like that we just take for granted cartoons. Yeah. It's like it's one of the most difficult medias to nail, and we're blessed every Saturday morning with just a plethora of variety, and it's crazy to think that this show was just tucked in there with like Batman and all that stuff and Spider-Man. Yeah. It's like it's really cool that like we got spoiled as kids
it was
with this stuff.
The tail end of the Transformers, G.I. Joe, toy commercial shows, right? Ninja Turtles that were just basically there to sell toys, and actually like, let's give some actual narratives, right? Like this is a cool media that we want to work on. I don't know what kids are now, but they're like weird shows for children, but also have like stoner adult humor in them. So I don't know.
Yeah, and everything's super digital now, where this stuff was like, I think this is all hand drawn still.
It shows because there's lots of errors and people look funny and people just like change shapes randomly, but it's like it kind of adds to it, right? So how about a final praise? So I said a strong early episode that helps establish this bold series, or just how bold the series would be. So wow, amazing.
Yeah, I think I've praised this episode enough. I can't rave about the animated series. I should probably just start a separate podcast and rave about it, because I could talk like endlessly about it.
We've talked more about this in the game.
Yeah, well, like I said, game's a little light. They're just kind of run. Not a lot to talk about, but I like the X-Men, so I could talk about it endlessly. And this is a great episode, and if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. Yeah, even if you aren't a fan of X-Men, I think that anyone could watch this and be like, okay, I'm intrigued, because I literally started with all the X-Men are dead, and I'm just seeing old Wolverine, and now I'm back in time, and everybody's back alive. So kind of it's very interesting. I like it a lot.
Nice. So then finally, some trivia, and we'll get out of here. So the two mutants Wolverine helped in the future, or that helped Wolverine in the future, have no names, and they are original to the series. The cover from the video game that the kid is playing is clearly the Punisher. The podium at the rally they see in Bishop's memory says, "Do you know where your children are?" And this is based on the public service announcement. Do you know what your children are? Oh, sorry. Do you know where your children are? About children's curfews. And Logan tells Storm to speak for herself when talking about the dark side is ironic, considering he is typically the most violent of the group in the comic series. Oh, all right. Those were some great trivias.
Yeah. It's like Wolverine tends to get shoehorned because he was like the most popular character at this time. So he kind of says some things that are not to his true character, but it's interesting that they try to make him like the moral compass, where a lot of people, like, he says the controversial thing, but he kind of, it's like the supposed to be the quote unquote like general consensus of the group, and he ends up just kind of comes off looking like an ass sometimes. But I love Wolverine. I love the, I gotta think that the characters, the animators that made those two characters are probably like hoping that maybe they get picked up in their own series and I get paid royalties based off the comics. Wouldn't that be nice?
There are a lot of weird, especially in this series, just a weird background characters, and you're like, what's that guy? And like, why is Strife? Isn't he like a weird clone of Cable from the future? Like, why is he just hanging out having tea with the X-Men today? And then he's gone and they don't talk about it, and you're like, it's strange.
Yeah, or like,
it's almost like the animation studios were just like, they had a bunch of X-Men cards and they're like, we'll just draw these characters, I guess, for no reason.
Yeah, or like, I think it's Thunderbird in the opening scene that is never referenced at all, and you're like, what the? And we've always wondered as kids, you're like, what happened? Why aren't you there? And it's like, must have got killed like Morph, but wouldn't people like mourn him the way like Wolverine mourns Morph sometimes?
No, that ain't a thing.
It's like, did he leave on bad terms? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Makes me wonder.
A lot of questions. But that ends part 1 of our 3-part look at some X-Men games on the Sega various video game system. So there you go. Pretty excited to keep going with this. It's a fun little side topic, and that's kind of all we got. So
yeah, and we'll probably be more on point next time. But it's our first X-Men show, so we're allowed to gush a little bit. This is kind
fair
of
enough. We have to get
the template for. Got to get that stuff off our chest. You know, we love X-Men. Got to express that, and then next time we'll be a little bit more to the point, and we have a lot better games coming. So maybe one not so great, but we'll see.
I think we stay at least maybe dip a little bit, but then we improve. So it's exciting stuff. Yeah.
It'll be a fun ride.
Okay, cool. So till then, I guess we'll see a numbered show and then X-Men in the month. So good times.
Yes. Till then.
Bye.
Bye.